Pokémon are incredible creatures, with interesting implications for their uses, though usually the only ones that are looked at are their battling capabilities. However, Pokémon also have many properties that are useful outside of battle, that have been shown throughout its media, whether it be the games, anime, or manga. Today I'm going to be discussing which types of Pokémon in general work the best as pets and provide the most for humans. Let's do this! Alright, first we're going to look at fire types. These Pokemon in general are, well, hot for obvious reasons. This on the positive side means they can help with cooking, bringing warmth in cold places, and providing light. These three things are insanely useful for normal survival, and in the case there was ever an apocalypse or you just wanted to hang out in the wilderness, these three things would by themselves make your survival rate way higher. However, there are some drawbacks to being hot. Something I've struggled with too. See, in day-to-day life, many things are very flammable, whether it be paper, clothing, or nearby fauna. This has led to humans who are supposedly very intelligent to frequently cause fires accidentally, which can cause severe problems. Now, imagine a Pokemon whose intelligence, for the most part, is likely less than that of a human, and who will have much easier access to starting uncontrollable fires, and you have a very big safety hazard on your hands. Combine this with the fact you have to be fairly careful with many fire types, as, for example, with a Pokemon like Charmander, if their tail fire goes out, they'll just die, which means handling water near them becomes incredibly scary. Though, they may be able to tank a spill of water fairly alright, so I won't count that too hard against them since it'd be a bit weird if they just instantly died the second water touched them. Overall though, I'll give fire types a solid A tier in terms of pets. With the right training, it's likely all their downsides can be removed, and their benefits are so high, especially for survival and reducing utilities. Next we have water types. These guys are a bit interesting as their primary benefit is being able to seemingly produce water out of thin air, which, if you know how humans work, is pretty useful as we require quite a bit of water to survive. However, depending on the Pokemon, this water likely may not be safe, as I imagine a Pokemon like Tentacruel or any ocean-dwelling Pokemon may produce salty water, which would not be safe. Though, I did find a justification for the water type's production being an organ called the condenser, which utilizes airborne H2O to produce its water, so this could be safe drinking water. Additionally, water types almost always can be ridden on water, which in itself is pretty useful, especially if there's a flood or something, so that's a pretty big plus. Overall though, I think I'm going to give them an A tier. They provide some useful things, maybe not as much as a fire type, but they definitely have way fewer downsides because they ain't going to burn down your house. Our final starter type is grass, a type that's definitely in my top 5 favorite just in general. However, are they good as pets? Well, many can be used as medicine, similar to most plants. However, it's likely these would have to be refined and prepared for consumption, so that doesn't really benefit us more than just buying medicine at a store. Though, having Pokemon to produce medicine hopefully would make medicine prices cheaper. Though, knowing humans, they'd probably find some way to increase the price anyways. It can also be noted, however, that most grass types have a kind of plant nature aesthetic to them, and it's been shown that humans are happier and healthier in general when they have time interacting with nature, so that can be a potential benefit for a grass type. This is especially true for certain ones that provide grassy terrain or the like, which could definitely help improve one's mood. Overall though, since there's really no downsides, and they have a lot of potentially healing and mentally healing properties, I think grass also is going to land itself in the A tier. Our next type is pretty boring, and it's the normal type. In general, these guys are, well, fairly mundane, which would be expected from the normal type. Mostly, they're just indistinguishable from a lot of normal pets like cats and dogs, so they really don't provide much. Their one saving grace is that many of them learn healing moves, such as Audino and Chansey, and have traits that allow them to care for their trainer. This is pretty useful for a pet, so it will bring them up a decent. Because of these factors, I'm going to put them in the B tier. They're basically just better versions of normal pets. Let's get into Normal's more muscular and handsome brother, fighting. See, fighting types provide quite a bit in general, due to them usually being, well, very strong. They can provide a lot of aid in things like construction work, or just general lifting hefty objects. This for society, and even just for someone moving their stuff, is really valuable, as, for the most part, it's basically just unpaid labor, and has been shown in the game to be used that way a lot of the time. Especially in Black and White, where we literally have the Girder Pokemon line, which seem built specifically to do construction. Not to mention how hot fighting types are, though this is subjective. Thus, I give them a B. I think they can be pretty useful in general as a pet, especially for certain people, but they don't provide anything too special or crazy. Now that we've talked about the jocks of Pokemon, let's move on to the nerds, psychic types. These Pokemon are, in my opinion, insane. Having psychic abilities in the modern day can prove incredibly valuable, as many psychic types are able to read minds and even predict the future, such as Gothitelle, Xatu, and others. In fact, in Gothitel's Pokédex entry, it's said to have seen the end of existence and to often be able to learn the lifespan of their trainers. This alone could be incredibly useful. On a self-serving level, you could predict lotteries, shelter yourself from possible weather events, or even protect yourself from death, obviously assuming these powers could be used to change the predicted future. Add on that they can often read minds, and this can allow you to find out secrets of others, which could be incredibly useful, or even hypnotize people, which Hypno and Gothorita have been shown to do. This means depending on how moral you want to be, you could hypnotize people to give you money, or on a nice level you could help someone dealing with emotional problems using hypnosis. Additionally, their incredible intelligence often has been shown to let them talk with their trainer, and as such they could possibly teach their trainer very effectively, though this isn't as striking as telling you about the future. Finally, having telekinetic powers is incredibly useful, as they can help with most tasks depending on how strong their powers are, and in a survival situation, these powers could provide pretty much the same uses as many other types combined. See, this would occur as with telekinetic powers you could lift heavy objects like a fighting type, bring food and water from various hard-to-reach places like water types and grass types, and also produce a fire. Albeit in all these cases, it'll be a bit more awkward, but you'll get the job done. The Psychic type, in my eyes, really proves that brain beats brawn, as it can produce the same results, and more even, with not fully evolved forms. Thus, I can't justify putting it anywhere else but S. Now, let's talk about the two complementary types to Psychic, Ghost and Dark. Starting with Ghost, this type is interesting. With the themes of possession and spooking people, the immediate survival usages, or even modern day usages, don't seem very apparent. You can probably scare some people with your Ghost type, but outside of that, it doesn't provide much usefulness unless you need protection, and the protection is surprisingly good. Just think of it like this. If your Ghost Pokemon can scare a person, even if they are really strong and dangerous, you're chilling, since they won't want to fight you because your Ghost type is just too scary, and many Ghost types are known for being incredibly terrifying. Overall though, this is kind of as this benefit also means you'd need to get used to how scary they'd be to you. Thus, I can't in good conscience give this mid-type any more than a D. Though, I kinda want to give it an F. It could be good for playing pranks, which could make you a decent prank YouTube channel or something. Dark type is kind of similar, except these Pokemon aren't spirits, just kind of edgy. This makes them perfect if you're trying to get a goth girl, or are just emo and want something to complement your aesthetic. Additionally, these Pokemon are also known for playing pranks, which is a bit of a plus, though they do have a proclivity to be related to negative events, or themselves cause these negative events, like how Absol appears if it foresees negative things to occur. This could possibly make them a good warning mechanism, but I think there's another interesting use. Dark types are immune to Prankster, the ability which implies they are pranksters themselves and can't be tricked. In addition, they're immune to Psychic type attacks. If this logically translates to being immune to Psychic types' powers in general, then Dark types could be very useful to prevent evil people to misuse Psychic types for mind control or taking advantage of people in other ways. I think these factors make it a cut above Ghosts, but still not that great, as in a survival situation or really any modern situation, you won't be getting that much out of them, so I'm just going to put Dark in B. Mostly because of how threatening Psychic types could be in a society, how useful Dark types would be to protect both you and society as a whole. The Psychic types could, legit do crazy things, they could rig ballots, cause humans to pass different laws, launch nukes, that would be kind of worrying. Anyways, since that was a bit edgy and tense, let's move on to a more lighthearted type, Bug.
Get this disgusting bug away from me! Oh? Please?
This type is very unassuming, and frankly, probably creeps a lot of people out, as well, most Bug types look like bugs, which the average person is made uncomfortable by. Obviously, you could assume that people would be a bit more calm around bugs in Pokemon, just because there are so many of them and they're so big, their only real other benefits are hyper-specific anyway. Like, a bug type like Vespiquen or Combee might be able to make you honey, or Gyarados might be able to produce Spider Stitch, which, to be fair, would be really useful for a shelter. However, for bug types, their usage seems very specific to each individual bug, other than the fact that, at least according to the game, bugs are really good for the average trainer, at least assuming the average trainer will have low or mid-level Pokemon, since bug types evolve very early on, generally meaning they're more powerful than other low-level Pokemon. However, that's more of a combat thing, so I won't really hold it that high. Thus I decide bug is D tier for being a pet. The poison type and the poison status condition specifically make them in some way useful, as in general most poisons in Pokemon seem to be the same and have common cures. Thus, it's likely with a poison type, you could in theory formulate antidotes for poison. However, this seems a bit trivial, as well, Pecha Berries do that, and there are already commonly available antidotes in most games and in the anime. Additionally, many poison types are a bit icky and possibly poisonous to the touch, so hugging them could lead to many problems, like getting poisoned yourself, or just having a mid-time. So overall, this is a pretty niche group of people who would want them, and I don't know, I'm gonna have to put in an F. Now, onto the type immune to poison, Steel. Steel is a cool type, and in general really strong. However, I'm not sure how good a pet most Steel types are going to make. See, many Steel types are big and menacing, and even in their baby forms, they may be cute, but probably would be hard to pet and hug. Like, Aaron's really cute, but it'd probably feel like petting a handrail, which I doubt would be very comforting. Additionally, it's likely the sound Steel types would make while moving around your home would be loud and irritating. Plus, their skin debris could possibly contain unhealthy metals that could damage a human's body if exposed for long enough. The only saving part of Steel really is their immunity to poison, so you don't need to worry about curing their poison, though this really doesn't save them, so I'm gonna have to drop these fools in the F tier. Now, Steel is sad as a pet, but it does conduct electricity, and our next type is the electric type. For electric types, there's a pretty obvious strength of, producing electricity. This means you could, in theory, have them charge your phone or other appliances, saving on utility bills. Or, in a survival situation, you could use the electricity to produce fires. Also, theoretically, if you trained your electric type enough, it could act like a defibrillator if you were to go into cardiac arrest, and it could apply a charge to your chest and possibly bring you back to life. However, though, a poorly trained or young electric type could easily substantially harm a trainer, as electricity in general can be incredibly deadly, even in small amounts. This could easily be mitigated, however, by training your electric type or just wearing certain equipment like rubber wristbands and such to lower the chance of harm. However, it's still a little bit detracting from them. Also, this is the type Pikachu is, so Game Freak would probably be mad if I put Electric too low, so I've decided Electric is going to sit solidly at B tier. Now, talking about staying safe with electric types, let's bring in the type that is fully immune to them. Ground types are a bit hard to rank as well. Generally, they don't provide many pet-like features, other than being pretty rideable in general, due to their size and physiques. Additionally, they provided the utility of digging into the ground for many of them, which has been shown in the games at least to allow easy escape from caves, which is in all fairness pretty useful, and if for example a building collapsed or cavern and you needed out, they could save your life. Though, these uses are a bit niche, since in the case that you'd need to be saved by your Pokemon, police would probably also have ground types that would probably be stronger than yours to save you, and for riding, you can ride a lot of Pokemon, so I'm gonna give these guys a C. Also, while we're there, I'm going to put Rock in C tier, and then put it down to D, since in general, although I genuinely love rock types and many of them, like Rockruff and the Nose, frankly, it just seems like they're less powerful for caving and not as rideable, though they may be a better fit to climb rocks. And there was this meme I saw, so I'm going to put them back up to C. Now we have flying types, and I'll be real, these guys are hype. This group has a ton of Pokemon able to fly humans around easily wherever they want and safely. They can also generate large amounts of wind, which could be incredibly useful for drying yourself or your clothing, or maybe just cooling yourself down with a nice breeze. Also, most of these are birds or bird-like, and it's hard to go wrong with birds as pets, so overall for flying, I'm going to give them A tier. Ice type is next, and these are an interesting type. Juxtaposing fire types as they produce cold as opposed to warmth, they can provide, in theory, a little advantage. For example, if you're really hot and need to cool down, or if you want ice for a drink, they can be really useful for that. However, these situations seem a little bit trivial, especially given if you're really hot, most of the time that means you're in a hot environment, where your ice type is generally probably not going to be very comfortable. They could possibly help you build an ice skating rink or a ski hill by producing ice and snow, though this isn't the most useful thing, and also, one thing that's really useful in a pet is hugging them or petting them, and with ice types, you'd probably kind of hurt yourself, your hand would get really cold. Overall though, I'm gonna have to put them in C tier. They can't really compare to the Pokemon in higher tiers, however, the possibility of cooling you down is decent. Now onto the most recently added type, Fairy. These Pokemon usually sport a pretty cute aesthetic, and that's pretty useful for a pet. Not only are they pretty cute, most Fairy types are associated with supernatural powers as well as purification, which means they can provide some positive benefits, especially in a city environment, where they can help you set up gardens and possibly purify the air. Overall though, they're pretty cute and nice to have around, so I'm gonna put them in A tier. Finally, we have the type Fairy was designed to counter, Dragon. This goes without saying, but this type is really cool. Tons of really strong and, dragon-looking creatures. In spite of this, there are a lot of cute Pokemon in this type as well, at least in their baby forms, though they do have a bit of a problem. Because they're so powerful, they're generally pretty hard to control, so the average trainer may have a hard time having them as a pet, since, A lot of people have a hard time just caring for a cat or a fish, let alone a dragon that could eat their arm whole. Outside of that, dragons could also be a status symbol, so you could impress people with your rare, cool dragon type. Though, for most people, they aren't going to be that useful, I think, so I'm going to put them in C tier. And with that, we complete all the types. It's interesting seeing them ranked like this, as it's much different than how I'd rate them if I was doing a power tier list, for example. But I wonder if you guys had any different opinions or general ideas, and if you wanted to leave them in the comments, I could respond. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and have a nice day.